Good morning. You're listening to the Blaine's World um, webcast. And what we do is typically speak to people throughout the area. That's some of the cool stuff they're doing. And it's my pleasure to have two of the coolest people I know on today's show. And they are, see, George, you beat me too. I was going to have you wave to all your fans and friends. They are George Awad and Gillian Bellinger. And you can now wave again. We'll get an official wave to all your fans and friends. And these two guys are really cool people. That's why you're on the show, because we only have cool people on the show. But what I'd like to do is talk about an exciting program you both are involved in. But before we do that, I should mention that I've known George now for a bunch of years. And I knew George, I've seen him as a performer, as a talented guy, doing lots of different things. And George, if I could put you on the spot in 2 hours or less, can you talk about your background or how you get into improv?
I took a free improv class with the great Tom Chalmers, actually, when he was part of NYS 3 acting school in 2014. And I loved it so much that I didn't take the paid one. But until he sent me an email, until he sent me an email and said, "Hey, I think you should really try this. Like, I think maybe, I see something there." And that was all I needed to hear because it really, I don't know. He's definitely kind of a mentor for me. And so that was great. And so then I took all his classes and yeah.
That's why you mentioned that because I also took 20 years ago an improv class with Tom, and we can say we're both kind of sad we were talking off there that he's going to be moving from the area, I guess, in the near
Mhm.
future. So it's
Yeah.
Asheville was, but you were saying you took the improv course because I've seen you also as an actor. I had the pleasure. I didn't. You've acted a couple of times. I saw you in a play or two at Magnetic.
Yeah, that came a little later. Katie Jones kind of asked me to be a grandmother in Little Red Riding Hood, which, of course, it's a perfect role for me. And I'd never acted before, and I was like, "Well, I've never really memorized the script." And she said, "Like, well, half the role is improv, and the other half is memorization." And honestly, that was what a great way to get your foot in the door, get your toe in the water. You know what I mean? With acting, and I've done some other stuff since. I love it. I love it. I wish rehearsal time didn't take so long because I would love to do more acting because I love it.
And you're so
It's
good
great.
at it. But the question before we talk about that, so in another life, as a kid, you grew up where?
Um, Buffalo, New York.
And as a kid, did you see yourself as a kid growing up that you'd one day be an improv guy or an actor? Is that what you always wanted to do in life?
No, 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 no. It wasn't even on my like list of five professions. I think playing for playing Major League Baseball, and I was terrible at baseball. And President of the United States was in there. Historian, where I could wear the blazer with the patches. That still might happen, but no, not even close. And I was never in theater in high school or never did any of that. Not that I didn't want to. I just didn't know anything about it. It was like a foggy, fuzzy thing. I
Very,
wish I did.
very cool they got into it. And again, been such an active guy in theater in the area and improv in the area. And then I know for a long time you were what president or for a while you were president of the board of Magnetic Theater.
I was then vice president. I don't want to talk about that. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding. But no, yeah, I was helping out with that, and that was fascinating, and it was a great bunch of people um, that I was on the board with. Do you need more names?
No, we got enough.
Okay.
But anyway, I'm glad you got into improv then. We'll talk about it in a second what you're going to be doing. Now, I asked Jillian the same kind of question. Jillian, you as a kid grew up where?
I grew up in Waco, Texas.
Okay. And Waco,
Yeah.
Texas, same thing too. Growing up in Waco, Texas, did you always know you want to be an improv person?
Not improv, but I always loved theater and I did theater all through school, and high school. And then I went to college and got a theater and communications degree. And then I found improv because there was an advertisement in the back of, I think it was like Backstage, but I think it may have been a local one to the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And this was back when auditions were in the newspaper. So I saw an audition for an improv company, and I had done it a little bit, in like a random class at like a thespian festival during high school and liked it. But Waco wasn't a huge booming metropolis like it is now when I was growing up. And so I just didn't know really about it. And then I auditioned and I got into this local troupe in Minneapolis called Stevie Ray's Comedy Cabaret. And then I started doing comedy sports and I fell in love with improv in the Twin Cities. And then eventually I moved to Chicago and studied at Second City and the Annoyance. Then I moved to LA and I started to teach for Second City. And I took classes at the Groundlings. I was on an IO Herald team. So yeah, I have done it for a long time.
So
Yeah, over 20 years.
improv's game then is theater's lost. So you're not doing acting per se, but you're doing improv.
Say that one more time.
So acting's lost, theater's lost. So you're not doing improv instead of straight theater. Is that
Um,
for the most part?
I I am only doing improv and no straight theater.
Okay.
So, um, yeah, I really, really love the process of improv. And not that I necessarily have anything against straight theater, but I do. Um, so in Los Angeles, I focused more on commercial and television and also improv, and I still audition from Asheville for film and TV from here. But yeah, I don't have a strong interest in the theater, so to speak.
And so,
Yeah.
Gillian, in addition to the thing we're going to talk about in just a second,
Mhm.
you also had your you actually we'll call it Misfit Improv and Acting School. And
That's right.
what is that all about?
Yeah, so I am the artistic director of Misfit Improv, and we are an improv school in Asheville, and we teach both short and long form classes, and then we have 5 performance ensembles and do 2 shows a month at NC Stage, as well as student showcases. We do 6 student showcases a year, 2 of them, so 12 total. Yeah, so we have a lot going on. We serve over 100 people about. And George is on one of our ensembles. He's on our music ensemble. And we do an improvised musical, we do a short form show, and then we do a long form show as well. And then we do corporate training, corporate entertainment. Yeah,
And George, you're also you have your company too, and it's Double Dip Productions, I think is the name of it. And
Yep, that's it.
what is Double Dip Productions all about?
We're all about producing unique comedy and theatrical events, um, wherever. But so far, they've been in this area. But still, we just want to like put unique things on stage. Comedy. We focus on improv, but we also do. We kind of looking more towards. We've been doing some sketch, and we've been doing like we produced Quality Service, Joe Carroll's one person show. God, last January. And for a while, we were producing Blind Date Live with co-producing with Kayla Clark. And yeah, we just kind of want to tackle projects that are a little different.
And so
And the productions have gotten bigger and bigger. So
so let's talk about then taking on bigger projects. That ties into something that you're both involved in now. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about it. It's the Asheville, name exact title is the Asheville.
Asheville Improv Festival. It's catchy, I know.
Okay.
But
And so talk about that. It's not the first one. It's going to be the second one, I think you mentioned to me up there.
yeah, the first one was a production of the Asheville Improv Collective when it was around. I was a partner in that, and that was a 3 night festival in 2019. But for all intents and purposes, this is the first one because that was another time, another world, and just very different from now. And this is a 4 night festival, actually, with teams from all over the country. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that then. I think there are two parts to it. I guess you're producing the show, and Jillian, you're in charge of the entertainment. Is that or the performers?
So I was the head of the selection committee. So we had a whole committee of people that reviewed teams to select folks who would be part of the festival. And then I also supported George in bringing headliners to the festival.
Okay. And so let's talk then about the festival because it sounds kind of cool. It's going to take place when, George?
May 7th through 10th in four venues downtown Asheville. It was originally supposed to happen in October. For obvious reasons, it moved. And um, the four venues are so Wednesday, May 7th at Asheville Music Hall, Thursday, May 8th at
Masonic
the
Lodge.
Masonic Temple. Yep. And then Friday, May 9th at NC Stage, and Saturday, May 10th at YMI Cultural Center.
Okay, so that's pretty cool. I mean, so it's a pretty big involved thing. And you were saying, Gillian, in terms of being on the selection committee for choosing who's going to perform in this, did you have a lot of folks want to perform?
We did. So we have 40 teams coming, 40 teams playing, which is a lot of
Right.
improv teams that are coming to perform. We also have a strong local contingent, which we love. The improv community in Asheville continues to grow and get bigger and bigger. So we have strong representation. But we have teams from all over. So we've got teams from LA, New York, Chicago, and it was interesting because we were so close to the festival happening when the hurricane happened, and that really shifted things for a lot of people. So we had to pivot, right? And so we have been very lucky that a lot of those teams decided that they still wanted to come and be a part of the festival. And we also
Mm-hmm.
have gotten some new ones that we didn't have before because the dates changed and the world looks different.
Now, when the
Mm-hmm.
people were interested in being part of the festival, did you do this via Zoom or videotapes or tapes?
Yes.
They do.
So they submit an application and then send video. And then I think there were 12 folks on the selection committee, and we divided it amongst each other. And then we had, a matrix that we used to evaluate. And then a team would get a score, and then those scores were collated. And then the teams that had the highest scores out of all of the folks that watched their video were the ones that were invited.
And George, do you remember, or ballpark, how many teams submitted to be part of this? You know?
I feel like it was something like 68, 70,
Wow. I mean,
something like that. Yeah.
so it must have been tough just going through the tapes or deciding on videotape who was the best. Was that a tough decision?
Not always.
Not always.
Sometimes it's very clear.
Yeah.
In both directions, right? Sometimes it's very clear that a team really gets it. They're very snappy. They understand. They make powerful, sophisticated choices. They have an energy about how they take the stage. They just are very polished. And then there are other teams where they don't read like that. The hard part is more like in the middle when you've got a lot of nuance. And so that's when we started to lean into, well, do they do a form that's like somebody else's? Or does this team bring a diversity that another team doesn't? Or are they coming from a part of the country that it would be great to have representation from? Yeah, so we started to look at in more granular ways when we get kind of in that middle area.
Now, can
Mhm.
you tell that on tape? Is it easy to pick up, or is it better if it was in person, if you could have done
I
it?
mean, you're gonna definitely get a lot more nuance in person, I think, because you're able to read a lot more when you can
Sure.
watch someone. But you really can get quite a bit. I mean, I've been an improviser for a long time, so watching an improv show I'm reading it not like an audience member. I'm reading it like more like an instructor who's looking at or a director, like the way that they're making choices or moves are what I'm looking for to give me an understanding of how do they play. And then I
Right.
think the other thing is that the audience is part of that story too. I'm listening to how the audience is responding to them. I'm listening to like how do they deal with a suggestion? How sophisticated are their characters? Just little things that we look for that really indicate that a team is pretty savvy about the way that they play. And also, if they are submitting the video, we would assume they're submitting something that they want us to review because it was their best work.
Hmm.
which sometimes is hard to get video of a show. And, ideally, you're not going to submit something that you're not proud of. So we assume that they're submitting something there's something there they want us to
And if
see.
anybody's listening
Hmm.
to this or watching this, Gillian, I hope they kind of heard what you just said, because I think I told you off the air, I had a recent party and I had hired an improv troupe. But
Yes.
what I did I actually did one in Asheville area, did one in Pennsylvania. And what's interesting, Julian, I asked for tapes, and some of the tapes out there were so bad. I
Mm.
couldn't believe, I don't know, George, if you've seen this, but they put it on their website as an example of what we do. And it was like,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, I can't believe that if you're going to have a tape, it's worth doing the best tape you possibly can.
Yeah.
Because if people
Yeah.
see it, George, it was just incredible. And you probably saw that even in judging some of this.
Oh,
They
yeah.
Oh yeah.
pretty bad tapes.
It's also, I mean, to be fair, it's expensive to get a real deal videographer and all
It
that.
is.
And another thing you have to think about is all
Sound.
this sound. Exactly. Like some places have, so a videographer would have to bring in sound. I mean, that could really add up. So, but I get it. I mean, it'd be awesome if everyone could do that.
I guess if you're taking it seriously, or especially if you're looking to take the next level, it's worth spending
I
the
agree. Yeah.
extra money, because it's just incredible. These are people who actually put out their services and they want people to hire them,
Right.
and it was just some really poor stuff. So you went from 68 to 40. And so talk about the
Yeah.
process. So they're going to have 40 different teams coming in from
Mhm.
all over the area. And
Yep.
they're all saying, George, at your place, is that it? No, in
Yeah.
that car, in the car. Yeah.
That's right. Just parked on the lawn. It'll be great. We'll do s'mores. It'll be awesome. No, they're from all over. I mean, we have a team as far away as Bellingham, Washington is coming, for example. And yeah, they're coming in. We're kind of excited too that there's a festival or a thing that's going to hopefully bring people to Asheville. Asheville is the biggest selling point for an improv festival here. It's by far. People want to come anyway, and we're obviously wanting the people to come back quicker. But yeah, they're all gonna be divided over 11 shows over 4 nights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So each show, I was wondering that, so 40 people, so each show, so each of the locations he mentioned, there'll be a couple of shows at each location, is that it?
2 at the first location and 3 each night, the other 3 locations.
Yeah, because I was wondering to have to sit to 11, 11 would be a lot, but there'll at least be 3 or 4 each night.
Well, no, it'll be like 11 show blocks that'll have 4 or 5 teams within each block.
Okay,
So an example, like the 6 o'clock block on Wednesday has 5 teams.
okay, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so if people come to this, then they'll see no more, I guess 5 will be the most they'd see than anyone.
I think there's actually,
I think 5 is the most you would see,
Now,
right?
just checking. I think that is true. Yeah.
aside from the two of you, do you think anybody will actually get a package that they can see all the shows at one time, or is that an option?
I'm so glad you asked,
We
Elaine. We have
do
a
have that. Yeah.
festival pass. Yes, a festival pass. They'll get them priority entry and seating in all 11 shows, plus discounts at 5 of our sponsors exclusive to the festival pass, and swag, festival swag, also exclusive to the festival pass. It's the exclusivity is coming out of our pores. It's great. And yeah, and then all the performers also get passes too, different kind of passes, and so they can all go see the shows. So that's the fun of an improv festival, is that you're seeing it with a bunch of improvisers and non-improvisers too, which makes it really fun. And then we have after parties every night.
I was going to ask you, and is there a culminating event to the festival? Is there an overall party, or just each night has a party?
Each night, and the last night will be the biggest night for sure.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
talk a little bit about, Gillian, you were saying you went through the people who submitted. Can you mention just a couple of actually, let's talk about the Asheville area. Who are some of the folks from the Asheville area going to be in this?
Right. So, you had brought up Tom Chalmers earlier and reasonably priced babies. So reasonably priced babies will be there, as well as Speakeasy's What's in the Box. We also have Adesto, who, if you're not familiar with Adesto, is run by Laurie Jones and Paul Vanasek, and they do narrative genre-based improvised plays, so they will be there. Misfit will be there with our music improv ensemble. We also have one of our character teams playing called Sweepy Todd. We also have Big Cousin, and that is a Georgia two-person.
They are a
It's
three-person.
three-person. Local improvisers and the Improvables, which is a short form team out of Hendersonville. So they will be there. And then is Tim Hearn also doing a thing with
Uh,
Zach Knox?
yes, two-sided. You know Zach Knox.
Okay, sure.
Uh, yeah, he and Tim Hearn are doing a two-person improv uh, set where like Zach is going to be improvising on keyboards and playing with Tim, and Tim will be the one-man dynamo that he usually is.
Yep.
And yeah, and yeah. So we got lots of great local teams.
Joe Carroll's performing
Joe
Joe in the
Carroll.
Ether, which is
Yep.
Joe performs solo improv with a band.
Hmm.
So in the band is Scott Velashin and Will Jernigan and someone else that I can't think of.
Right.
We also have Saturday Manatee, which is
Mhm.
Nora, um, Tram, Eric Brown,
Paul
Paul
Dixon,
Dixon,
Stacy
and Stacy
Uria.
Uria. Yep. Is Middle
Yep, that's
Rage
right.
also going to be there?
Oh yes, my improv team, Middle Range, with Stacy Uria, Matt Piken, and Paul Dixon.
We also have Shame
Uh,
Spiral, which is Matt
mhm.
Wilson, um, Celeste. Showenden. I'm not sure how to say
Yeah,
her Celeste's last
I've
name.
never known, I've never known her, but
Marlene Thompson.
yeah,
Um, yeah. So we have
and
a
and
lot of
Peter Lundblad,
improvisers.
Peter
Peter
Lundblad as well.
Lundblad. Yes,
Well,
thank you.
Yep,
let me
yep.
ask you both then a question in terms of improv. So what I hear you saying is there going to be some regular teams. There are some, so improv at the festival would be any one person improv performances?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Well, so Joe Carroll,
Right, okay.
I
yep,
mean, he will have a band, so
yeah, and
but
Tim Hearn
he's the
also.
one improvising, and
Yep.
Tim when he's with Zach. So those are two solo improvisers.
So
Yep.
in terms of improv, let me ask you both in terms of performing, easier or more difficult doing it by yourself or with other people?
Um, I would say it depends on the improviser,
Yeah,
and generally it is a heavier lift as a solo
I would
performer
imagine, yeah.
because you have to do everything,
Right.
right? You have to do everything. There,
yeah.
you're generating just an immense amount of emotion or storyline or energy or information.
True.
Yeah, and I think some people love that. And other people love to connect, and other people love both. So I think it
Yeah.
part of it just depends.
Now, George, you had mentioned, and I haven't really seen too much of it, but some of the festival, and you mentioned, I think off the air, involves music improv. And
Oh yeah.
exactly is music improv?
What is music improv, George?
Well, musical improv is basically improvising either a musical or using musical styles, so singing and improvising at the same time. And sometimes there are parts of it where you're just doing a straight up improv scene, and then it'll lead into a song, but you're also improvising with the musicians live. So, Misfit will be doing on Saturday night, they'll be doing a musical improv set, and they're going to have Steve Sensenig, an amazing pianist and improvised or improv musician, basically, who
Mhm.
will be playing. He'll be our resident festival pianist for whoever team wants musical accompaniment. But musical improv is different because you're actually singing the songs and the musicians are improvising with you and vice versa. I do it and I love it. It is hard, but it is so satisfying once if it comes out okay and if you get at least two rhymes.
It's one of the things that bothers me about Asheville theater, and so I'll ask you about improv as well, is that ever done
Mm-hmm.
canned music? In other words, can you do improv using canned music?
You could.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. I think one of the things that we like about using live musicians is that they can adjust to us and we can adjust to them. So there's a bit of a we are creating together.
Right.
And if you're working off a track, you're stuck with whatever's going on. So, it's just a little more confining.
It's one of the things,
Yeah.
George, you probably know, it's happened in Asheville certainly the last couple of years, but more and more places are using just tracks, for shows as opposed to as live musicians. And to me, there's no comparison. I love having a live orchestra. Um,
Right.
Even Magnetic, it was really cool. You did several shows with live, as small as Magnetic was, did several shows with live performers. And,
Sure.
Gillian, it reminds me of it, the alternative would be to have actors mouth the words as well. If you have musicians play off a track, you
Sure.
just mouth the words, and it wouldn't be quite the same thing, I don't think. So it's really cool. So most of improv, they're actually with live musicians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
at the festival, do you have anybody coming in with more than just a piano player? Are there going to be more?
Well, so Joe works with a three-piece band.
Okay, cool.
And then for Misfit, it will be Steve, and then also Will Jernigan will play percussion with us as well.
Okay.
So we have a
Mhm.
two part band.
So let me ask you both then, or since we're talking about this, in terms of the improv stuff that you do when you're actually performing, and so at the festival, are you going to also be performing?
I will. I am in 3 shows.
Okay.
So I'm performing with actually maybe 4 shows now that I'm thinking about it. I'm performing with Mudflat Mondays, which is a team that I have with Matt Piken. I also will be performing with Sweepy Todd. I will also be performing with Misfits Music Improv Team. And then I will also be performing with a group called Family Dinner, which has Katie Jones in it, Lori Jones, Marlene Thompson. Celeste is in that as well. Stacy is also in that. Yeah.
Now, when you perform, and I'll ask George the same question, so 4 different teams you're performing with, will you be rehearsing before the festival, or do you have to rehearse on this?
So it depends on the team. Misfit is we rehearse music improv every month, and then we also have a show every month. So we're regularly up and doing it with each other. Uh, we have called special rehearsals for the festival for some of the other teams so that we are prepared.
But I want to. I hate to get semantic, but I just want to because I feel like when improvisers say rehearsal, then it's like, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. We call it practice.
Right, okay,
Practice. It's
better.
really practice. It's not. We're not rehearsing as if like there's a
Mm.
script or the thing that we've premeditated. It's practice. Yeah,
I do not care about that at all.
I know. But if anyone who's not in improv is listening, because just to
Well,
you know,
Julie, what do you mean? How come you don't care about that?
Because I
yeah,
actually
how
do
come?
think we are rehearsing something. I think that we are rehearsing the skills that are involved. So, like, there is a lot of effort that goes into crafting an improv show. So, we run entrances and exits the same way you would in theater. We run tech, we run music. We run so many elements of a show. And I feel that the word practice is reductive of the craft that we actually do. And so to me, I actually think of it as rehearsal. I am in the process of doing the thing, of creating the art that I create with these people in a way that is specifically crafted for a show experience. There are,
No, that's fair. That's
I
fair.
do
But
think there
will you
are
explain? Will you give us a minute? Um, I,
I do think there are moments where I am in practice, which
yeah,
they are just if I want to have a rehearsal with a team that isn't for anything, if we just want to get together and practice, that to me is practice. But I
right,
do think of it as rehearsal because our teams are working towards a performance for an audience that has bought tickets and is
right.
is experiencing something specific.
I guess I should clarify. The content is not rehearsed. The content's all made up. It's all different.
Yes.
Obviously, the technique and all that, that's rehearsed. Yes, 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 yes.
Yes.
Which you guys ever have a situation where you're doing a gig and
Mhm.
you're asking for feedback from the audience?
Mhm.
And you ever have a situation where the audience doesn't give you feedback?
Sure.
Oh, well, oh, meaning like they're not laughing?
No, no, not only not laughing,
Or a suggestion
they're not
or
giving you suggestions. Does that ever happen?
sure. George and I have done a show together where
Yeah,
that happened.
that's true. That's true.
What?
That is
Um,
true. But it's rare. I
yes.
would say it's rare. Yeah.
I think it is rare, and I think that it does happen. And so we just work hard in that moment to connect with someone in the audience who is generous, maybe, or is willing to be a little bit vulnerable or willing
Mhm.
to have fun. Just, they are a little more uninhibited. They're willing to make eye contact. So, we instead of opening it up to everyone, we might come down to one person and say, Blaine, what's your name? You made eye contact with me. What's your name?
Yeah.
Okay, Blaine. Blaine, what's your favorite animal?
Or the other one, Gillian, I imagine you could also go and the proverbial, oh, did I hear somebody call out? You know?
Yes. Yeah, sure.
No,
And if they were very resistant, like we can shift into a space of saying like, okay, great, no worries, we can take this one from you, George. What's a place two people could be, and then we would just move on, you
Right.
know?
what, and last question I'll ask you both, and we won't see it at the festival, but do you ever play or perform with groups that aren't responsive to what you're doing? You know, you feed off, I guess, interactivity with the audience. Have you ever had situations where the audience didn't play with you?
Yeah, like a bad show.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Sure, sure, especially in the beginning of my improv journey. Yeah. So when I
Yeah.
wasn't very good, and if it were like in the beginning, if it had been a student showcase, that's all your friends and family, and they came there to be supportive. But I remember doing like, we call it bar prov, but improv in a bar at like 11:30 at night, and there's six people in the room and no one wants you to be there.
Right.
There's music playing, there's a TV on, and food is being delivered and people are drunk. So yeah, at that point you're really just playing for yourself. You're playing for reps, you're playing to understand how do I get people's attention when they aren't on my side. Um, so I think there's a lot of skills to be gained, but it is excruciating
Oh,
in
yeah. I,
practice.
I was in a team once where we literally played for two people in a with like
Ha,
50
that
or
kava
60
bar.
empty seats. Yeah. No, more at the Carver Bar, actually. I forgot, it was an AIC show. Two
Wow.
people.
Yeah.
Two
George,
people.
if I can ask you back to the festival, since you mentioned it, so they're going to
Yeah.
the 4 nights, then each night has an after party,
Yeah.
and will that
Yes.
be at the facility or at someplace else?
Every night except for Thursday. Or excuse me, except for Friday. Friday will be at a new speakeasy that isn't even open yet. I'd tell you where it is, but uh,
Okay,
it's stepped and it's going to be really fun. And every after party is going to have its own entertainment. That's not improv. That's just something else.
so at the after parties, do you have to have it come to the event that night, or are they open to anybody
Yeah, you have to just come if you buy a ticket for any of the shows. You
at
can
You get
come
night?
to that
into the
night
after party.
for sure.
Okay, great. Now we can just wrap up again the
Well,
specific,
actually, before you wrap up, if I can mention one more thing,
please.
if you don't mind, we haven't really talked about the headliners. So
Oh, I
on
thought
top of the
you
40 teams coming, we actually paid to bring in and house and fly in legends of improv. And I know that
okay.
sounds like a weird show on cable, but no, these are like legendary improv masters who are coming. We brought six of them. They include Jill Bernard from Minneapolis, Three Pete, all black improv team from LA, New York, and Chicago. We brought Mick Napier and Jennifer Eslin. Mick Napier is the founder of the Annoyance Theater, the legendary improv theater in Chicago. We have Carla and Craig Kikowski, who are like a 1-2 punch improv team, but also Craig has had a cameo in almost anything that's been filmed in the last 30 years. And Carla is an amazing writer and performer. And who am I forgetting?
You're working about Hodgepodge.
Oh, Hodgepodge. Yes, Hodgepodge is a quartet of well, actually, there's more of them, but a quartet of them is coming. Of just like really seasoned veteran improv performers and teachers from Chicago, all female, and it's going to be awesome. And they're coming and they're going to be doing shows and teaching workshops on top of that.
And that must be very exciting for both of you to see these folks as well, especially if you haven't seen them. And since you just mentioned it, you mentioned workshops. How did that come into play?
All told, we're putting on 11 workshops, all taught by those headliners.
Yep.
And so people can learn, like a workshop would focus on a specific aspect of improv, or we have one three-peats teaching how to write for late night, because most of the team writes for late night shows like Late Night with Stephen Colbert, Amber Ruffin, etc. So that's gonna be really cool. I'm taking that one. And show workshops on character building and workshops on listening, and it's going to be super exciting.
And these workshops, are they at the same where the facilities are, or are they other locations?
One of them is, but really they're kind of all over. There are ones at Wortham, a couple are at Story Parlor, one's at Misfit, and two are at Misfit, and Attic Salt. So it's really a nice mix. NC Stage has one of them. So yeah,
and Katie Jones coordinated the workshops for the festival.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I thank you both for being my guests on the edition of Blaine's World.
Thank you.
Lots of luck with the festival. To recap one last time, George, the festival dates and how to get tickets.
May 7th through 10th, and we have 11 shows over those 4 nights. And you can get tickets at AshevilleImprovFest.com or AshevilleImprovFestival.com. They both work.
Okay. Anyway, I'd like to thank you both being my guests on this edition of Blaine's World webcast. Also, my producer, Cappy Cassetti, and hopefully we'll either see you at the festival or someplace else down the road. Thanks, guys. This was great.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Blaine.
Thank you.